Well, welcome to this closing ceremony. We are very glad that you are here. We have to really start on sharp because there are some schedule problems. Both Sheen and Bina has to go to the airport. Has to rush to the airport today. So our ceremony has to be very punctual on time. Thank you very much for coming here. We are very happy that you came to Santa Marta, and we are also very happy that we take this opportunity to give two important prizes of the society: the Boulding, Kenneth Boulding Award and the Bina Agarwal Awards of the International Society for Ecological Economics. So, I would like to announce. Both prizes. I will explain very briefly what these prizes are about. And by coincidence, Bina is here for two reasons. First, because she's the awardee of the Kenneth Boulding Award, but also because she has very gently and kindly offered an endowment to the society to create Bina Agarwal Prize for young scholars. So I will take advantage that she has to come to the podium for both prizes, and then maybe a single speech will be enough to combine both things because we have this time limitation. So I will announce the prizes, and then we will ask the three awardees to come and give their respective speeches. I will just kindly ask the awardees to stick to the time because Bina has to leave, and we have to close sharply at 4 p.m. So Kenneth Boulding was a very interesting scholar and activist. I was amazed by his life. He came from a very poor family from Manchester, and he became one of the most known economists in America, in the U.S. He was also a converted Quaker, and one of his main points was that economics could not be value-free science. He stressed very much that economics should be part of the moral philosophy. And therefore, morality should be embedded in the task and the goals of economists. That's something that neoclassical economists have forgotten a long time ago. I mean, neoclassical economics decided somehow to say that economics was not anymore part of moral philosophy, and this is a point of divergence between ecological economics and neoclassical economics. But Kenneth Boulding was also very active in the peace movement during the 60s and 70s, during the Cold War, and unfortunately it seems that we are moving backward with regards to global peace. So therefore, to remind his contribution is very timely nowadays. So I will read the statement from the jury of the Kenneth Boulding Memorial Award for Ecological Economics. The prize jury is composed by Peter May from Rio de Janeiro, Carl Forke from the Beijing Institute, the Stockholm Resilience Center, Lizzie Kral from State University of New York, the US, Yen Mariana from the Partnership for Economic Policy in Kenya, Volker Mauerhofer, who is also here. Thank you very much, Volker, for coming here, from the Mid-Sweden University in Sweden, and Rajeshwari Raina, who is also here. Thank you very much, Rajeshwari, for being here with us. And she is professor in the Chief Nadar University in Delhi, India. And they say that this prestigious award is dedicated to individuals who embody the exceptional qualities of Kenneth Boulding, aiming to preserve and perpetuate the wisdom he imparted to the International Society for Ecological Economics and beyond. And the Boulding Award decided to give this prize in 2023 to Bina Agarwal, Professor of Development Economics and Environment at the University of Manchester, and David Barkin, a professor at the Metropolitan University in Mexico City. Both very well-known scholars in the community of ecological economics for a very long time, very esteemed, and the jury decided to recognize them for their significant and enduring contributions to ecological economics, particularly in exploring social equity and gender roles in rural societies within developing regions. And well, Kenneth Boulding was, as I said, a leading system thinker who integrated social theory with the natural sciences and moral philosophy, and his creativity, seminal ideas, and constructive engagement with the scientific community were widely recognized, resulting in his being elected president of the American Economics Association and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, as well as having stimulated the creation of the International Society for Ecological Economics. And if I'm not mistaken, Kenneth Boulding was there at the creation of the society. And I think Joan Martinez Herrera was also there, if I'm not mistaken. So Kenneth and his wife, Elise, actively contributed to the international peace movement, and he maintained unbounded faith that goodness and sensitivity would ultimately prevail in a world then and now seriously threatened by human folly. Reflecting the legacy of Kenneth Boulding, the biannual International Society for Economics Boulding Award honors people who exemplify aspects of his special character. In this sense, it is fitting that the ISEE now honors the life and work of both Bina and David, who perpetuates building's many individual strength and stimulated ISEE members and beyond. So in the case of Bina, Dr. Agarwal, Professor Dr. Agarwal has made to the development of great contributions to the development of feminist economics, to concern for environmental governance, agrarian change, property and land rights, and she was also the ISEE's first female president, for which we are equally appreciative. The contribution of Professor Barkin has made to the collaborative construction of a social communitarian approach on radical ecological economics. And these contributions can inform organizations among the rural peasantry as a bulwark of radical thinking carried forward by his academic disciples and associated with social movement in the whole of Latin America. So we are very much grateful to both of them for their significant contribution to the field, and I would like to give them the prize. So now we move to the second prize, and again, it happens by chance that I want to stress that Bina got the Boulding Award this year, but we started to talk to her by her request since last year to offer a second prize this time for young scholars. So I think that's very complementary because the Kenneth Boulding Award is mainly offered for life achievements, while we also want to incentivize young scholars to follow the academic career in ecological economics. So we started to talk to Bina last year, and she was very kind to create an endowment for the society to offer this prize from now on. So from now on, we will announce this prize every time we have a conference, and it's called the Bina Agarwal Prize for Young Scholars in Ecological Economics. The jury of this prize, the idea of this prize was to offer it to young scholars with very brilliant career, but also with some emphasis in the study of the Global South. And the prize jury was composed of Laura Rival from University of Oxford, Ileana Espejel from the Universidad Autónoma de Baja California, Mexico, Maria Alejandra Vélez, who was with us in this conference from the Universidad de los Andes, and Xi Ji, and a professor from the School of Economics at the Peking University in China. Unfortunately, she couldn't come because her visa was denied by the Colombian government. We were very disappointed about that because she's also a board member of the society, and she has planned this trip for a long time. But and we have sent a formal complaint letter to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Colombia because paradoxically, Petro, the president of Colombia, was in an official visit to China these past days, while we had the conference. So, and this year, the Bina Agarwal Prize for Young Scholars in Ecological Economics is awarded to Federico Demaria, and he's a professor in Ecological Economics and Political Ecology at the School of Economics, University of Barcelona, in recognition of the substantial and original contribution he has made in mapping environmental justice and conflicts, studying the ecological economics of waste management in the Global South, making an ecological and cultural critique of development, and developing an ecological macroeconomics for the growth. Broadly speaking, his research aims to inform theory on how the environment is shaped, politicized, and contested. And he has published more than 25 articles in highly ranked journals in social environmental sciences, like our own journal, Ecological Economics, but also Global Environmental Change, Sustainability Science. He has edited 7 special issues and 2 successful books translated to many languages, one called Degrowth and the other The Pluriverse. And moreover, he is co-author of the book The Case for Degrowth and author of The Political Ecology of Informal Waste Recyclers in China, published this year by Oxford University Press. Last, he is an editor of the journal Sustainability Science and a member of the editorial board of Ecological Economics. He is also an amateur organic olive farmer, and is a very good friend and very kind person, very well esteemed by colleagues for being a very kind and a lovely person to deal with. So thank you very much, Federico, for your kindness, for being with us. And we are very proud for your achievements, and please continue in that way. So we have asked the awardees to give a very brief speeches, just reminding you that we have to finish on time because Bina has to leave to catch up a plane. So I would like to ask first Bina, because she has this schedule problem, and then David Barkin, and the last one will be Federico Demaria, for giving us some words and wise words, and to give their award speech. Thanks again for coming. We were expecting very few people, but it's plenty. I mean, it's full, this hall. Stay with us after this ceremony, because we're going to have a kind of small party, of course. We have to start with party and finish with party. This is the Caribe. And we also have food. And unfortunately, we cannot serve you rum, because tomorrow is election, so it's not allowed to give alcohol today. And this is university, so we cannot give alcohol, but we will continue the party afterwards, right? So please stay with us. Bina, please, thank you very much, and you can come.
So hello, everybody. How unusual is it to both endow a prize and to receive one on the same occasion? So this is very rare, and it's truly wonderful. So first, I will say a few words about the Young Scholars Prize in Ecological Economics, which, as Roldan said, was established for encouraging and promoting ecological economics. So I worked with ISEE. It's a biennial prize, and I really thank the ISEE board, Roldan and Azahara, who chaired the prize committee for setting this up. As you know, ecological economics is of critical importance today in global efforts to enhance human well-being, environmental sustainability with social justice. Now, the prize recognizes pioneering intellectual contributions to ecological economics by young scholars who've contributed significantly to this interdisciplinary field, and whose work also has a primary focus on developing countries. So I'm really, really pleased that the first winner of this prize is Federico Demaria, who's a professor of ecological economics and political economy at the University of Barcelona. And as Roldan has said, he's made original contributions, particularly in mapping environmental justice and conflicts and waste management in the global south, on which he has a new book. The jury also made honorary mention to the work of two other young scholars, Radhika Khosla in the UK and Nitishri Patnaik in India, and I congratulate them both, although they couldn't be here. So with so many talented young scholars working in ecological economics, its future will be assured. So I want to step here for a minute. This is Federico, just to be able to thank him and to congratulate him. Give him a clap. Oops. And now to the Kenneth Boulding Prize. I must assure you that the fact that I endowed a prize and I'm receiving one is purely a coincidence. So it's really a great honor to receive the Kenneth Boulding Award for Ecological Economics. And I want to warmly thank Peter May, who's the jury chair, and other jury members for this honor. I also congratulate Roldan and his team for organizing a really challenging conference, and Anne Atkin, who's sitting there quietly, for providing multiple forms of support. Now, I didn't know Professor Boulding personally, but many aspects of his work resound with me, such as his focus on institutions, his interdisciplinary approach, covering economics, sociology, and political science. Moreover, his emphasis on the interaction between social ecosystems and ecological ecosystems is central to our understanding of ecological economics. These three aspects of his work, institutions, interdisciplinarity, and social-ecological intersections, are very much in line with my own approach to ecological economics. And hence, in this slide, I've called it a conversation with Kenneth Boulding. At the same time, I also diverged from Boulding on several counts, and I will focus on these divergent aspects, which are really like a building block, and also bring to them a gender lens. Now, conceptually, Conceptually, a good starting point is the famous Boulding triangle, which he first spelled out in his 1970 book, Social Dynamics. Now, Boulding created a triangle depicting three institutions: the market, the state, and the community. And they represent the economy, polity, and society, as you can see. These also represent the three disciplines he wanted to integrate: economics, political science, and sociology. Now, each institution, he argued, has a different mode of interaction. So the market is represented by exchange, the state by coercion, and community by reciprocity and cooperation. However, there is a fourth institution that Boulding did not focus on, at best subsuming it within the community. And this institution is the household or the family. Now, without recognizing the household as a separate institution, the picture is incomplete. Adding the household makes the triangle into a rectangle. Now, why is this important? No, you don't, it's okay, doesn't matter. First, the household is a major institution that interacts. Do tap it, yeah, good, and tap, yeah, fine. So the household is a major institution that interacts not just with community, but also with the state and market in notable ways. Second, making the household visible helps us unpack some major gender inequalities. On the one hand, in dependence on ecosystem services, and on the other hand, the opportunities for conserving nature. Another count on which I diverge from Boulding is how we conceptualize interactions within institutions. So, as I had said in Boulding's work, each institution has a different way of interacting. States use coercion, markets use exchange, communities use reciprocity. In my work, I depict interactions within all four institutions, including the household, within a single theoretical construct. And this is the bargaining framework, which recognizes the coexistence of both cooperation and conflict within each institution. And I'll return to this. Finally, I believe it is important to integrate elements of feminist economics and ecological economics to progress both. So for illustration, consider the issue of forest degradation and conservation. If we factor in the household, why is it essential to factor in the household? First, because it's the main locus of inequalities in the impact of forest degradation. And secondly, it offers a major opportunity for the effective forest conservation. Now, on inequalities, when forests degrade, the burden falls, as we know, on women and children, since they are the ones who spend most time and effort collecting forest produce. And for daily survival, millions of rural households in the global south collect firewood, still used for cooking in large parts of South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, fodder for animals, uncultivated food items for daily nutrition and during seasonal scarcity, and due to climate change as well, and then minor forest produce for sale. So when forests degrade, it increases women's and children's time and effort in collection, it undermines their nutrition and health due to a decline in food items, and it reduces their income. At the same time, solutions for better conservation need women's cooperation. So I found in my research in India and Nepal, which is published in this book of mine, Gender and Green Governance, and in a number of papers in Ecological Economics and World Development, that the presence of a critical mass of 25 to 33% women in community forestry governance hugely improves conservation outcomes. Where women constitute a critical mass in forest management committees, there is a significantly greater likelihood of improved forest canopy, forest regeneration, and biodiversity. So you'll ask, well, why is this the case? And this is because including women, firstly, leads to better information flows about the rules of forest use because male and female social networks are different. I'm sure you have that experience. There is also better protection and rule compliance since women organize informal patrol groups. So, I found in my field work that apart from the formal groups, there were informal groups that they organized. And then women also brought additional knowledge of plant species to enhance regeneration and replanting efforts. This is because men and women differ in their knowledge of ecosystems, both because of differential use and differential spatial mobility. Women's groups, we also found, were able to resolve conflicts more easily since they were more co-dependent on each other. Now, notwithstanding these benefits from involving women in forest management, in many regions, communities and families enforce social norms that restrict women's public interactions. So, for instance, this is one of the patrol groups that the women had organized. The next. So, for instance, in South Asia, women are socially discouraged from speaking up or being assertive in male gatherings. So, if you try and find out where are the two women, the red veiled women, and I call this participatory exclusions in a 2021 World Development Paper. The presence of a critical mass of 25 to 33%, however, can help women overcome these constraints. In other words, the household as an institution cannot be subsumed within the community, nor can it be seen as driven largely by love or cooperation. In fact, both communities and households are heterogeneous institutions, and interests among members can diverge or converge by gender, class, race, caste, and so on. Both institutions can thus be a locus not only of cooperation but also of potential conflict. And the same, we can argue, can be true of states and markets. So we need a different framework for understanding the interaction between the four institutions: household, community, market, and state. And this brings me to the bargaining framework that covers all four institutions. Next. So in contrast to Boulding's three different principles of integration, coercion, exchange, and cooperation, I argue that one principle, bargaining, can be used to characterize all three of the institutions, plus the household. Both cooperation and conflict and both self-interest and reciprocity coexist in all arenas, and bargaining power in one arena affects bargaining power in the other arenas. In each institution, both parties cooperate because it leaves them better off than non-cooperation. But there is conflict in terms of what share of the benefit each gets, and this depends on each person's bargaining power. Hence, in markets, exchange implies cooperation, leaving both parties better off, but there is implicit conflict, say, over prices, and hence what share of the benefit each gets. In the state, similarly, the state needs the cooperation of citizens on many counts, but there is also ground for conflict and dissent on some counts. Communities, again, involve cooperation, but different sections of the community can have conflicting interests based on class, gender, and so on. And of course, in the household, spouses cooperate, but existing inequalities also point to implicit conflict. So this bargaining framework can help us see how enhancing a person's bargaining power in one arena can actually enhance their bargaining power in another arena. So suppose, for instance, you take the government and it reserves 1/3 seats for women in community forestry institutions. That would enhance women's bargaining power within the community and household by overriding conservative social norms. Similarly, if family members support women by investing in clean natural gas for cooking, they would depend less on firewood and so reduce their work burdens. Similarly, if family members, and so this brings me therefore to the, you can tap it. Yeah, just wait. Similarly, so this is part of the reconceptualizing of the triangle into a rectangle and so on. And finally, I want to say a few words on the commonalities and blind spots in ecological economics and feminist economics. Now, there are many common features. Both feminist economics and ecological economics recognize the inadequacy of GDP as a measure of progress. EE shows that GDP is overestimated if we ignore the depletion of natural resources. Feminist economics shows that GDP is underestimated if we ignore women's contribution to the economy. Both draw attention to non-market valuations. EE is in terms of ecosystem services and FE in terms of unpaid care services in the home. Both challenge the primacy given by conventional economics to self-interest as the motivating force of human behavior. But many ecological economists, like Boulding, recognize we need trust and reciprocity for environmental sustainability. Feminist economists similarly draw attention to social norms and motivations beyond self-interest in determining economic outcomes. Both EE and FE draw attention to the effect of social institutions and social capital in economic functioning, and both draw on disciplines beyond economics. Yet the trajectories of the two have moved separately. In particular, ecological economics has paid rather little attention, I believe, or inadequate attention to gender inequalities. So one way of integrating these two very significant areas of economics is by recognizing the many goals they share. Indeed, each can learn from the tools of the other. So we return full circle to Kenneth Boulding, who insisted on the importance of cross-disciplinary learning and the intersections of social and ecological ecosystems. I'm sure had he been alive today, Boulding would have embraced the need to integrate the insights of feminist economics into ecological economics, and vice versa. Thank you.
I'm very pleased to be here today. I'm especially pleased to be the recipient of this award. I first met Kenneth Boulding in the mid-1950s as a little boy. By pure happenstance or not, he was a friend of my father's. They were friends and collaborators. My father was a trade unionist and very much committed to many of the same things that Kenneth Boulding represented in all his life. But later on, I had the opportunity to come in contact with him as a Quaker, as an ardent pacifist. And when I decided to leave the United States for good, in part because of my opposition to the war in Vietnam, or the excursion, the United States excursion into Southeast Asia, we had occasion to meet. And then in the beginning of the 70s, two of his students came to work at the same university that I'm working in. And that's quite extraordinary, because it was one of them that hired me to be there, and I, this month, am completing 48 years at that university. Bina took the rug out of some of the things I am going to say, and that means that I can emphasize some of the other things that I am going to say. As she pointed out, he was very committed to integrating the social sciences. He was a leader in institutional economics, a frame of work that is still very, very important, but misunderstood by the formal economics community. Next. I don't have to go into the Boulding triangle. Bina did a much better job than I could have done. But I thought I would include on your right, a poem, because he published about 8 books of poetry as part of his life. And I won't read the poem because I can't just do justice to the rhythm of it, but I leave it to you for a few moments to read the poem, or perhaps I should read it. Even great scientists have made mistakes, which others, often pupils, have corrected. A science at large expects the unexpected, unusual accidents, and lucky breaks. But what it cannot tolerate is fakes. Lies and deceit, once they have been detected, are not forgiven, totally ejected from the profession, are the found out rakes. I wish that in fact it were true. I'll leave that as my parting reaction to this poem. Let's next. In terms of the concerns today, I first found out about this essay, The Economics of the Coming Spaceship Earth, a year and a half before it was published. It has become since an extraordinary essay, written sometime very, very substantially before The Limits of Growth, but in many ways anticipating everything that had happened, that was said in The Limits of Growth by the Club of Rome people. In the essay, he talks about metabolism. In the essay, he offers an image of the deep crisis that we are now facing in even greater tragedy than 50 years ago, or more than 50 years ago, when he wrote the essay, when he published the essay. I think it's an essay that we should all read. And fortunately, it's relatively available in English, Spanish, French, and Chinese. I don't know what other languages. Next, please. But I want to talk today about the heritage that we have developed in Mexico and spread to Latin America. The heritage that we have given a label of radical ecological economics. And reflecting on what Bina just said, the important thing about this version of ecological economics is that the actors, the persons, the people who have to implement and make real, translate our academic work into a better world are not individuals, are not heroes and heroines, are not even families. They have to be the community as a whole. A community as a whole, and we have in that sense created the concept of the communitarian revolutionary subject. Because what these communities are involved in doing all over the South, mostly in the South, although there are some in the North, are building post-capitalist societies that are operating on the margins of the state to defend, to claim, or reclaim their territories, and to insist that the management of these territories be developed by these communities themselves, and as bulwarks against the expansion of extractivism in all its forms. This involves necessarily a contentious confrontation, if you wish the duplication, a contentious confrontation with the powers that be. These are local powers. In some cases, it's organized crime. It's the state, the global market, and in a number of recent cases, it's the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Thank you, Brooks. It involves, and I would ask you to think deeply about this, it involves a different relationship, a different conception of what is nature and what is the relationship between society and nature. It involves a notion that society is part of nature and does not have to conserve nature because it must conserve and protect itself. The oneness of society and nature does not come from intellectual commitments of how we are going to move ahead to confront the environmental crisis, or how are we going to overcome the extraordinary social inequalities that our present world is exacerbating. No. The oneness of society and nature comes from millennia behind us, or behind them, from the myriad cosmovisions of these communities in every continent, in every ecosystem. The cosmovisions, and perhaps even more deeply the cosmologies, that these communities have inherited, are resuscitating, and are learning to not only cherish, but also to teach us about. So in many of your works, our works today, it is common to read in our scholarly journals about buen vivir, or the good life. We can hear about Ubuntu or Swarak, less commonly comunalidad, teclechal, lechal. But we can hear and we learn about what this means, not because philosophers today are learning new ways of thinking about the world, but are assimilating the learnings, the teachings of historical ways that have been come down through the centuries in spite of, and I want to say this very, very carefully, in spite of attempts at eradication, in spite of disease, in spite of wars, assimilation, and yes, in spite of genocide. These cosmovisions of the extraordinary variety of peoples all over the world are the kinds of teachings which perhaps ecological economists can learn from if they are willing not to read the European texts on the good life, which are now being challenged by scholars in the Andes countries to talk about specifically Sumac Causay or Sumac Camaña, challenged by Andean authors that are saying, you got it wrong. It's not about the good life. It's about something completely different. And that's going to be hard for us to teach without having our students read the originals. For example, the Mayan Bible, or the Spanish translation or the Spanish interpretation of the Mayan Bible called Popol Vuh. Next. In Mexico, some 40 years ago, an anthropologist discovered how to communicate a life's work in a book called Mexico Profundo, which is available in English from the University of Texas Press. Guillermo Bonfil Batalla was very much a disseminator of what he thought was the way in which deep Mexico was being able to resuscitate itself. It's interesting, there were 6 million, he said there were 6 million indigenous people in Mexico in 1987. And today, the official figures put that number at 25 million. They've been extraordinarily prolific, or the definition of who is indigenous and what they are has changed completely. Next. The revolutionary communitarian subject is an extraordinarily important actor in changing the world. And it must become an important actor in our work to understand how we as ecological economists can participate in their efforts to change the world. Next. These are 5 principles that in our work, in our collaboration with these communities, they have helped us to define. They're not all the principles that are common in the communities, but it's a small set that I have successfully been able to communicate in my academic work. These 5 principles are principles that you would all agree with, I presume. But how do you make it? How do you turn that into community action? And how, more importantly, how do you convince the state to allow the communities to continue to exercise these principles? Next. The communities, Roldan is very surreptitiously telling me that I finished my time. I will go on for a couple of more minutes. I understand the limits. The important thing about these processes of el buen vivir, comunalidad, Ubuntu, is that it involves a reassertation of community life, of communal life. Bina emphasized the household. We prefer to emphasize the community because there's something that's about the community that is very, very important. And that is that the communities don't act alone. They're building alliances and networks worldwide. Next, please. They are as it says here, and I won't go into more of it, they are strengthening tradition through innovation, and the innovation is what we as university people can collaborate in helping to introduce. I won't go into the details of that. I'll skip this and the next one. Next one. Next one. And I'll come to the end by re-emphasizing a point that is the point I would like to leave you with. It's the point that was important in Boulding's work as a pacifist, as a Quaker, as an economist, as an institutional economist. But he spent his life building networks, building alliances between other groups, and forcing economists to get out of their limited eggshells. Building alliances is extraordinarily important, and the two internet addresses on the screen, Bina, thank you very much. Yeah. And the two internet addresses on the screen are extraordinarily important. I urge you all to look at them. The Via Campesina is the largest social organization on the face of the earth, with 200 million members, committed to agroecology and food self-sufficiency, and working in the international fora in a relatively effective way against the transnational corporations, food corporations. And the second is less known among us, unfortunately, Territories of Life. This is the easy part of the address, ICA Consortium, which I won't go into what it means. The Territories of Life, a group, a consortium which exists in 200 countries and whose members cover 1/4 of the Earth's surface. 1/4 of the Earth's surface. And are committed to building the conservation efforts and transforming their relationships with their peoples, with their states, with the institutions of which they have suffered a great deal over the past centuries or millennia. The Territories of Life Consortium is an extraordinary example. And many of the communities, unbeknownst to you, that you're collaborating with, are members of the consortium, because it's not something they put on their letterhead. So it's with that message, learn about these two groups. Collaborate with alliances wherever you are, and build the heritage that we have to make as part of an alternative to the way in which global society is developing today. Next. And here's an unpaid announcement for my collection of my essays that you can all download for free.
It's kind of uneasy, no, to come after Bina and David, no. I was going to make a very long speech, and I will make it even longer. No, thankfully, the speech is proportional to your age. So since I get the award for the young scholar, I get less time. So I think my age is like about half of the one of David, so I'll use about half of the time. The argument I'm going to make very briefly, if I can, is that every ecological issue is a political issue. Next, Roldan. But the first thing, of course, is to say thank you for the award. Thank you to Bina, my friend who just left. Thank you to the society, to Roldan, to the jury, and to the organizer of this conference, which made a really great job, and I'm very thankful for this award. Next. I must admit that I felt very torn when I have been told about the award, and I didn't know whether I should accept it. I'm European, as you can see. I'm white. I'm a man. You know, what else? What other form of oppression people like me have been practicing? So I felt very confused, but not to make it too long. Next, Roldan. I've decided to accept this as a collective award, so not to me as a person, but to two social groups with which I've been working. Next. First is the informal recyclers in the Global South, with which I've learned a lot in the last 15 years, and I'm very thankful for that. And the award gives to them, in fact, the monetary awards will go to cooperatives of women waste pickers in Delhi, which I think deserve it more than I do. Next. Of course, one can argue that I'm in a position of power because I get the salary of a professor in Europe and therefore I get the chance to donate the money. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. And second, I think this award goes to the School of Barcelona, which was started or inspired by Joan Martínez Alier, which is in the room. And you can read more about how we understand it in this book, which is available also in Spanish. So here is where I'm going to go fast and not use all my slides. But I remember a few years ago when we were discussing in a meeting with Roldan and Sergio this book about the Barcelona school. I think Roldan, who is a close friend of mine, really frankly asked, Federico, do you identify yourself as an ecological economist? So I kind of take the chance to give a response to him, since he's quite close to me. And this is what I was going to do. I'm going to do it quite quickly regarding my contribution, I think, to the field of ecological economics. And I'm not going to use the slides, so you can go to the first one, and I think I'm going to stay one. Yeah. So basically, I think I've been trying to make two contributions in relation to the political. The first one is in relation to my work on environmental justice, which has been collaborating with the Environmental Justice Atlas, and in particular on cases related to waste management, and more in particular to informal recyclers. According to the International Labour Organization, there are about 25 million of waste pickers around the world, of which we basically don't know anything. So of course they live in a situation of all type of vulnerabilities, and they provide the service to society free of cost, but we really don't know much about them. So the last thing I've done is mapping with other people 70 conflicts, environmental conflicts around the world involving waste pickers. So this is in relation to environmental justice. In more theoretical terms, if you want, what I argue is that if we think of what drives environmental conflicts, I think we have been paying attention to the materiality of social metabolism, the energy and material flows in the economy, but I think we should be paying more attention to the political economy. I don't have the time to go into it, but I think sometimes ecological economics is a little bit naive in relation to power relation. In my work with others like Giacomo D'Alisa, I have proposed the concept of accumulation by contamination, following on one hand David Harvey and on the other hand Carl William Kapp, which you know have been working on this idea of cost shifting. This is the first point. On the second point, so on the first point, the political, when I say that every ecological issue is a political one, I mean the political as in relation to power relation. But I also mean it in a second way, which is my other part of the work, in which I've tried to do an ecological critique to development and a cultural one. The ecological one you can imagine. I think sustainable development is an oxymoron, because development is understood as a synonym of growth, and economic growth is not compatible with environmental sustainability. So I've been working on degrowth because I think we should be thinking how to manage an economy without growth, in particular in the global north. And recently I've been working on ecological macroeconomics models with Dan O'Neill, who joined me from the University in Leeds in the University of Barcelona, and that is what I'm currently working on. I've also been working on what we call the cultural critique to development. I personally think, and I know this is I'm in minority in this room, but I think development as a concept is an imposition from the West, where the center of the Western imaginary is this idea that growth or progress are always good, and that production should be increasing more and more, and that will always be good for society. So I'm quite critical of this idea. I'm critical of the SDG for this, in particular of SDG 8, when it calls for sustained economic growth. Economic growth is not a goal, at most it can be a mean to achieve something else. So in the second sense, I think the political, I understand the political as the struggles over what kind of worlds we want to live in, what kind of ecologies we want to live in, how we want to relate with each other, and indeed, if you want, who we are. So I think these debates on the alternatives to development and the book we published on the pluriverse, which is a collection of 100 alternatives to development around the world, it's meant to be a contribution of this, and I think ecological economics should be paying more attention to this kind of struggles over what kind of ecology we want, knowledges, gender relation, and so on and so forth. So in this sense, my response to Roldan is, yes, I do feel an ecological economist, and maybe I would say that I feel a political ecological economist. Thank you.
So thanks very much. Thank you very much for being so patient and staying with us. So we have to hurry up because there are the musicians waiting for us and the food and the drinks. So we don't want to keep you here longer. But before we move into a very brief announcement of the next conference, which we hope you will also attend. Of course, it cannot get to the standard we have set, but anyway, we have to go. I would like to acknowledge the work of a person who has been extremely important for us in the last 20 years for the society. I would say that it's the most important person in the Society for Ecological Economics. I'm referring to Anne Eichen. And please, a big applause for her. Her work has been invaluable for both for the society and for the journal, because Anne also has worked for the journal during decades. Better not to ask how many, but he has been a fundamental person for the development of the journal and for the development of our society. She represents our continuity. She's our history, living history. So I would like to give you a gift in the name of the organizing committee, also for your support of this support to this conference. It's a little piece of art, local art, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much. That was totally unexpected. I have no speech prepared. You were very lucky. Thank you to everybody, and especially Roldan has put in an incredible amount of work for this conference, and a pleasure to work for.
So thanks again to all of you. I'm very surprised that you are here. You are very much engaged. Because there is a beach, you know, there is a beach. And now we can go outside and we'll have food, drinks, and music as always in the Caribe. So thanks again, and I hope to see you in Oslo in 2 years' time.